You know, talking the other night, I think it's on the last Shoptime video, I was talking about the Secret Service and how it was a piece of legislation that was left on Lincoln's desk um, on the night that he was assassinated. He said, I'll sign it when I get back. He never did. Anyway, it reminds me of that fateful night in April, where the night that Lincoln was assassinated. So, Booth, kind of give it away there a little bit. John Wilkes Booth knows that Lincoln has already made a decision to attend the play at Ford's Theater, Our American Cousin. So he's also knows or has heard news that General Ulysses S. Grant is supposed to be with the president as well. He's in town. The president has asked him and his wife to go to the play with him that night. When Grant mentions it to his wife says, "There ain't no way I'm going to the I'm going to the play with Mary Todd Lincoln. Nobody can stand Mary Todd Lincoln. She is a major drama queen. She is extremely high maintenance. She demands a lot of attention. And when she doesn't get it, she'll show out until she gets it. She's a big baby. But she's also not right mentally. She actually gets committed to a mental hospital later in her life. She's just crazy. So Grant's wife, Julia, I think that's her name, Julia, tells Ulysses S. Grant, says, there's no way I'm going to that thing with her tonight. There ain't no way. I am not up for it. I just don't want to have nothing to do with it. So Grant lets Abraham Lincoln know, President Lincoln know, that they're not going to be able to. They hadn't seen their kids in a long time. They really would like to go see their kids and blah, 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 blah. So they get out of it. So now they got to find somebody to go with them because they don't want to show up to the play by themselves, you know. I don't know why, but they don't. So they finally settle on a young couple who are dating but are not married. Let me put something here. Or they're in courtship with each other, let me put it like that. Named Henry Rathbone and Clara Harris. Now they have their own history later in life, but tonight they accept the invitation of the president, of course. You know, I mean, who wouldn't? Especially if you were an officer in the Union Army like Henry Rathbone was. And Clara Harris's daddy was a senator. So, you know, it's nice to step out on the town with the President of the United States. So they actually accept. So they go by and they pick them up and they head over to Ford's Theater. Well, they arrive extremely late. For one thing, they're not there at the beginning of the play, so they arrive there later on. And when they walk in, they didn't really want to create a scene, but, you know, President comes in, they're going to create a scene. So once they get there, the play stops, the theater stops, and the band plays Hail to the Chief. And I think it was Hail to the Chief. Anyway, they play some sort of song just for the president. If it's not Hail to the Chief, it's something else. But they stop and they play that, and Lincoln is a little bit, you know, embarrassed, I guess, a little bit about being there so late. Well, little does he know that earlier in the day, Booth has gone there to the box where he knows they're going to be sitting and has placed a piece of wood inside that box. That's just a little stick or a little pole or a little piece of 2x4 or whatever, and he's placed it there in anticipation of the president being there that night. Now, I'll get to that in just a minute. Now, Booth knows the play that's playing, Our American Cousin. He knows that play inside and out. he knows when the crowd is going to be distracted by the actual play. So Lincoln and his wife and Major Rathbone and his fiancée, Clara Harris, all go into the booth, or all go into the balcony seat that's been set aside for them. So, get that scratch out of there. So they go in and sit down, and they're trying to say, "Hey, just start the play back up. We're sorry we're late. Blah 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 blah. Go ahead and start the play back up. We're anxious to see the play." So the play starts back up. And once the play is started back up, Booth has actually gone into a bar that's real close to the theater. Matter of fact, one of the ways you can get from the theater to the bar is going underneath the stage at Ford's Theater. So that's what he does. He goes underneath the stage and goes over to the bar and gets a little courage, drinks up a little courage, and decides that it's time. So he's waiting there, and he gets into the he goes up there to the balcony seating where Booth and where Lincoln and his party are sitting there watching the play. He opens the door. Now back there behind the seating is bunting and drapes and curtains and stuff. He's able to sneak in that door and hide behind the curtains that are right there at the door. So he sneaks in over there, and he's got his pistol with him. It's a single-shot Derringer .44 caliber ball pistol. Dang, I just coughed and all these shavings went everywhere. So he's got his little pistol. He knows he only needs it for real close-up. So he's not worrying about a Colt, Navy Colt Model 45 or whatever. All he wants is one shot. So he's hiding behind Lincoln. He's hiding behind Lincoln. And he knows one of the most famous lines in the whole play is coming up. It's coming up quick. The reason it's so famous is because at the time in the play it's such a funny line. And I mean, if you say it today, it's still kind of funny. It's a part in the play. And Booth is hiding behind the curtains, and all you can see, or all he could see, was the back of Lincoln's head. So he takes that Derringer pistol and he aims it right at the back of Lincoln's head at point blank range. Now, like any single shot pistol, there's a slight delay, or any kind of rifle at the time that wasn't in a cartridge. There's a slight delay from the time you pull the trigger to the time it actually fires. So Booth is sitting there with the Derringer aimed right at the back of Lincoln's head, and that's all that's sticking out from the curtain is the pistol, and nobody else in that box seat knows what's going on. So Lincoln is sitting there and he's watching, and he knows the line is coming up, and the line finally comes up and it says the famous line that's supposed to be really funny. It says, "Well, I know enough to turn you inside out, you old gal, you sock-dologizing old man trap." With that, Booth pulls the trigger. Also, with that, the crowd starts laughing. And Lincoln turns his head right there to look at the crowd because they're laughing. He thinks it's laughing. He's laughing. Everybody's laughing. And just as he turns his head, the pistol goes off. The pistol goes off and it's going right in the back of his head. It's off behind his left ear. The bullet goes in behind his left ear and crosses crossways through his head and lodges right behind his right eye. Perfect little hole you ever seen in your life. Or you haven't seen. After that, there's chaos. Everybody in the crowd's looking around. They're thinking that it's part of the play, and they're kind of laughing, having a good time. The people in the box, Mary Todd Lincoln, Major Rathbone, and Clara Harris, know different. Rathbone gets up and finally realizes what's happened. The president His head jerks forward and then jerks back and then rests on his chest. He's bleeding like a stuck pig. Booth only had the one shot in the pistol, so all he's got left now is the knife that he brought with him. He brought a big old darn knife. And him and Rathbone go at it. They start fighting up there. But Booth brought a knife where Rathbone had nothing. So he stabs Rathbone in the arm. He starts bleeding like crazy, and he can't fight no more. The two women are going crazy. They're losing it. So Booth, what he has done is to keep anybody else from getting up into that balcony seat. He's taken that darn stick that he brought earlier and wedged it in the door, because it was a door that opened into the balcony seats. So nobody can get in there, and things said power off. Nobody can get in there while Lincoln's sitting there bleeding with a bullet in his head, and Rathbone's sitting there with his arm gashed open. And of course, y'all know what happens next. He jumps out of the balcony, gets his boot spurs hung up in the bunting that's hanging right there below the box, and falls awkwardly and breaks his leg, says "Sic Semper Tyrannis," runs off the stage, hops on a horse, and leaves Washington. Now, Lincoln is sitting up there dying. Nobody can get up there into the box. There's a doctor in the audience named George Leal. He's a military doctor. He climbs up the front of the balcony and gets up into the balcony seat. The bunting has been torn down, so he helps use that, and several other guys are actually lifting him up, putting him up there in the balcony. When he gets up there, he's still in the same position he was when he got shot. Lincoln is. Finally, another doctor comes up there, another military doctor comes up there, and the two of them see all the blood on Lincoln's chest. They think that he's been stabbed because they know Rathbone's been stabbed. Rathbone's sitting there hollering about a knife, how Booth had a knife cut him. So they start ripping Lincoln's shirt off, and they don't find any stab wounds. So when they rip his shirt off and they don't see any stab wounds, they start looking for where the blood is coming from. Dr. George Leal feels around his head and finds the hole. The hole is a ball. Okay, the bullet is a ball. It's not a pointy bullet. It's a literal stone. Not a stone, but a metal ball, a .44 caliber Derringer ball. And it has made a tunnel in Lincoln's head. And Lincoln's having trouble breathing, of course. And he's able to stick his finger in there and clear out, I'm sorry for all the graphic nature here, but starts clearing out pieces of clotted blood, parts of his skull, and everything out of the head, out of the hole that it's made. When he does that, he notices Lincoln's breathing becomes steadier. He's never going to regain consciousness. And once he finds out that Lincoln has a hole in his head, Dr. George Leal says it's mortal. The wound is mortal. Now, it's been raining outside. And they left the White House. Lincoln and his wife went and picked up Harrison Rathbone, and just as they were going in, it was starting to sprinkle. Now it's raining, so they can't carry Lincoln back to the White House. They can, but it's just going to kill him sooner. So they're looking for a place to carry Lincoln. Once they get up there, they're able to kick that piece of wood that Booth had put up there. They're able to kick it off to the side and allow other people to get in there. So they take him, and instead of going back to the White House, they take him outside, and they're just looking for some place to get him. So the guy across the street, who I can't remember his first name, but it's Peterson House, literally right across the street from Ford's Theater, says, "Bring him in here." So they take him in there, and sure enough, over the night, they keep doing that. They keep draining the blood out of the hole to stabilize his breathing. Over the night, his right eye starts to swell and bruise all the way around it. Both eyes start to bruise and get black, but his right eye, his eyes were closed the whole time, but close to the end, his right eye had swelled so much that the eye started popping open. His eyelids started opening up because the eye was swelling. So at 7:22 the next morning, Lincoln just simply quits breathing. He doesn't breathe anymore. And with Lincoln's death, it pretty much opened the door for Southern economy and Southern, anything that happens in the South to be just opened up for a free-for-all for anybody coming from the North. Booth, instead of killing somebody that was against the South, he killed somebody that was going to be the South's strongest advocate in Abraham Lincoln. He was not going to let these private companies and people just go in there and ransack the place. He was trying to keep the radical Republicans from doing the same thing. The radical Republicans wanted to come in and take over and take everything everybody from the South ever had. That's how mad they were. But just sit down and think about it. It's a very sad day, and it's a very sad thing that happened. And I think that particular event is probably what set the South back for a long time, and I still don't think we've recovered from it. All right, that's the story.